Good evening. We have our audio fixed now, so I thank everyone. Welcome to the Board of Estimate and Taxation Budget Committee's fiscal year 24-25 budget presentations and public hearing. I am Leslie Tarkington, the Chair of the Budget Committee. On my left are Leslie Moriarty and Harry Fisher, and David Weisbrod is on my right. Thank you for your interest in the Town of Greenwich fiscal year 2024-2025 budget and for attending this evening's meeting in person or by watching the presentations and public hearing on Greenwich Community Television channels 24, 79, and YouTube. Thank you to the GCTV team, Horst Tebby, and Don Conway. Tonight's meeting will begin with the town presentation, followed by the Board of Education schools presentation, and then the public hearing. For the public hearing, speakers will be called in the order that they signed to speak. And I think if anyone wants to sign up late, they should bring their form to Pete Minarski, sitting here in the front, our town controller. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes. Comments received by completing the form linked to the agenda will be posted on the Budget Committee's webpage. The department meeting process begins next Tuesday, January 30th. Meeting dates are provided in the BET calendar section of the town website, as well as the budget schedule section with suggested department meeting dates. Fiscal year 25 budget meeting days and time schedules are approximate and subject to change due to changes in department availability or to the length of the department reviews. These meetings are also televised live by GCTV. The committee welcomes your attendance in the Town Hall meeting room or by GCTV television, YouTube. We meet 9 to 4 p.m. for 7 department meeting days, a consolidation day, and a budget decision day on February 27th. 9 days in total. This is followed by a BET budget hearing, I believe it's on March 27th, and the BET decision day on March 29th. So now the Budget Committee welcomes Fred Camillo, the first selectman, and Ben Branyan, our town administrator, and Wendy Zhao, our senior management analyst, to present the town's fiscal year 25 operating and capital budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Budget Committee, guests tonight, and GCTV for this airing of the annual budget presentation from both the Town of Greenwich and the Board of Education. Here is an outline of the presentation in 6 parts. 2023 Resident Satisfaction Survey, the BET Guidelines, the Capital Budget, the Operating Budget, Headcount, and Summary. We'll start out with the Resident Satisfaction Survey. The good news here is that 85% of our residents that responded were satisfied with the services provided. The company that we hired does this nationally, and they said that these numbers are not seen very often. So that's really, really good. I mean, when you have numbers like this, it's up there with puppies and kittens and baseball and hot dogs, apple pie. It's a good thing. We don't normally see that, so we're really happy. But also, that's really through the hard work of a lot of the agencies and departments and volunteers that have really helped provide the services that the town really expects. Quality of education in the state of the schools is the most important issue to our Greenwich residents, according to this survey. The good news here is that it's not at the 40 to 45 level. However, there's a few items such as school infrastructure and traffic that are really important to residents. Key to this question is that it was open-ended. Right? They let us know. We didn't tell them. We didn't give them any choices. They let us know what was really on their minds. 79% rate the value of their tax dollars as good or excellent. Again, that's right up there with the first slide. In the context of the national narrative, the high satisfaction of our tax dollars is not that typical. Ratings of our value of the tax dollars have increased since 2014, with a small increase in the past 2 years. If you look at that midpoint there, from 2018 to 2021, started going down for a couple of years, and then the pandemic hit, and then as soon as we turned the corner, the pandemic started to go up again. But even that big dip, it really went from only 5.82 to 5.53. So we really, since 2014, the last 10 years, we've seen this satisfaction, stay in there where it should be. But again, you want to be on the incline rather than decline. Town parks and trails are the most important services to residents. This I really loved because this is something that I've focused on a lot. And of course, being on the former member of the Board of Parks and Rec and being a hiker, this really validates a lot of the things that we've been doing the last 4 years. The important thing for everybody here, it's, the top three are bunched together, and then the services trail off a little bit. But you'll see in the capital plan that it continues investment in the services that residents find important. And we'll also have a focus on the police redeployment that we've done the last 4 years that really have made our town really at the top of the list, both in-state and nationally when it comes to public safety. Improvement of traffic/parking schools are the top priorities for the residents. Again, was an open-ended response. Again, the great news here, you don't see anything at that 45% level. However, this slide does show that we have homework, right? Traffic issues, bike lanes, school renovations, sidewalks, top priorities for our residents. The capital plan is a response to these priorities. The BET guidelines. Continue with current programming and services. Capital projects at $140 million for fiscal year 25. Capital projects at $420 for fiscal year 25 through 29, that 5-year plan. Mill rate increase of 3.24%, and estimated budget increases without benefits, 3% for the town and 4.3% for the Board of Ed. And again, to put in perspective, just a few years ago, that capital number was at like $55 million. So we are spending a lot there. We're just trying to do it in an efficient way where the residents get the most for their money. Capital budget. Governed by Article 2, Section 21B of the Town Charter, the first selectman shall develop goals and objectives and establish priorities for spending for the ensuing fiscal year. 2, establish priorities with respect to recommended capital spending for all town agencies. And 3, develop a long-range capital spending plan. We've revitalized the CIP process. It was, when we took over a few years ago, 15 years. We found that really was not working. This 5-year plan with a view to the out years, for the long-term view, 25, 50 years, is good, but we really need to focus on years 1 through 5, and that's really helped us a lot there. The second year, the BET has provided a 5-year capital number. It helps provide the certainty and clarity of capital spending. Important to have these discussions on capital projects in the context of 5 years, as I said, rather than just fiscal year 25 projects. And the capital plan is the first selectman's capital priorities over the next 5 years, as I said. The 15-year, some people ask why not the 15-year. Again, things were bunching up. Things change from year to year. So while you're focused on year 1, we want to have that blueprint for the out years 2 through 5. And certainly with a long-term, what's the town going to look like in 25 or 50 years? But if you can get lost in that. We found this 5-year was much better than the 15-year. This slide here just shows $373.8 million in capital projects over the next 5 years. We're still planning on spending more, but you see, based on the previous 5 years there, but that's the town of Greenwich, as I hope you can see that, is in the blue, and the Board of Ed is in the orange. Fiscal year 25 capital budget. The plan includes annual investments in town infrastructure. Okay, you'll see the annual paving is $3.75 million, highway maintenance $2 million, stormwater drainage $750,000. That does not include the millions of dollars we have spent in the last several years through grants and funding from the federal government for flood mitigation. And of course, the soil remediation project at Greenwich High School for $6 million. I know some people in here focused on this one, my friends in Old Greenwich. The Shore Road sidewalk. In fiscal year 23, $750,000 for phase 1 construction, $250,000 fiscal year 25 feasibility and design of a new sidewalk between Sound Beach Avenue and Greenwich Point, Fiscal year 26, $1.5 million for construction. This comes on the heels of a very successful sidewalk project on Shore Road that the residents asked for. We walked them through it. I don't know if Maggie Bound is here tonight, but there she is. She was a great quarterback on this. We told her all the obstacles that usually happen when you do sidewalks. People at the end come out of the woodwork against them. It was a textbook how they did it. Maggie and her team in Old Greenwich, they were terrific to work with, and certainly this is the next phase there that we'd like to look at for those people in Old Greenwich. Okay, the CMAQ Route 1 signal timing. We want you all to pay attention here to these stats. $300,000 in fiscal year 23 for the design plan funding and $3.7 million for construction costs. This will all come back to the town in grants. The reason why we're including it is you have to appropriate for the money, even in the budget, even if you know you're going to get funding in grants coming back. So the town will be made whole, but we have to, for budgeting purposes, we have to put it in there. This improves traffic signal timing and pedestrian safety by installing adaptive signal control technology. If you've seen down at exit 3 on Arch Street, we were the first ones in the state to have that. They really work well. It keeps the flow of traffic going. And so this now is going to be from the Stanford border on the Post Road to the Portchester border in Byram. That's going to be good. That's going to help really with the flow of traffic. We'd love to see these eventually all over town, but this will really help for all of the cars going in and out of our town. Thank you. Traffic Safety Action Plan. Fiscal year 25, $500,000. 80% of this is federally funded through the Safe Streets for All grant program. It's to create a traffic safety action plan to identify locations in town that residents want for improved pedestrian and traffic safety. You see this theme here? Pedestrian safety, public safety. It's really a big deal. We want people out there exercising. We want them walking around. We want them doing it safely. And again, we will only be spending $100,000 after $400,000 comes back to us, but we have to appropriate the full amount. But again, we will be getting 4/5 of that coming back to the town. Traffic, pedestrian, and safety improvement. Fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 30, $100,000 annually. Installing speed limit design signs. They install these rectangular rapid flashing beacon crosswalk signs at various high volume crosswalks to improve pedestrian safety. If you've seen these, or you see these around town, you'll see them flashing signs. We want to get more of them around there. You'll see the mobile ones that we have now. We don't have that many of them. It works when they're in a neighborhood. The minute you take them out, what happens? People start speeding again. So we have some permanent ones, we have some mobile ones, but these really do work, and we'd love to see a few more of these. That's why they're in the budget. One of my favorites, the Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center. The funding has already been secured for this. We just wanted to take this opportunity to discuss the status of the Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center. This is something that was being discussed, as I say every year, back when I was playing basketball there in the 80s, right? People were talking about it in the 80s. This is one of the things we're very proud of. If you haven't been by there, please take a stroll through it. It's beautiful. And we want to thank everybody that worked on the Parks and Rec Committee, the BT members, the public that weighed in on it, certainly Alex and Steve Cohen for giving us a boost there with the initial funding there, which we're still, by the way, going to be raising money for this. But you see, we started the demolition in summer of 2022. In summer of 2024, we're going to complete the furnishing installations and begin to hire and train staff in preparation for the building opening, which will be in the fall of 2024. Old Greenwich Elementary School. This is another one that we talked about last year. This was a big topic. We couldn't afford it last year, we said, with Central. Now is the time to get it done. We don't want any more delays with this. Fiscal year 24, $2.1 million. For fiscal year 25, the BOE submitted $43 million. I know it's up about $4 million from last year. It's only going to keep going up. The building committee, I want to take my hat off to them. They did a great job on this. They responded not only to the POCD, but they also responded to the residents who wanted to see the facade kept. They love the look of this school, right? We all do. That's what a school should look like. It's a building that was built in 1902, so it presented a little bit more challenges than some of the ones that were built in the 1920s. But they're really doing a great job there, so we were fully supportive of this, and we look forward to getting it done. Western Middle School, I almost going to say Western Junior High School, dating myself, soil remediation. We've worked with the US EPA and DEEP, Department of Environmental and Energy Protection, and for a few years now. We really want people to focus on the fact that these kids over there in Western, on the western side of town, have not had a field to play on. Classes have gone through there for 8 to 9 years and have not had, they've had to be bused to find places to play. Having spent a lot of time on that field myself over the years, it was always a great place we look forward to, and we're really looking forward to it getting done now. Actually, this could be one of the better places in town for kids, for athletics for kids. The cleanup preparation started in December of 2023, just a few months ago, and the restoration phase, including replanting, is targeted for the spring and summer of 2024, fiscal year 25, $2 million contingency. Capital pressure on budget. The decision to fund projects has a direct impact on the operating budgets, not just now, but in the future. That's why so much thought goes into this, because as you see, it really puts pressure on going forward. So anything we approve today, right, we're going to be dealing with this in the out year. So that's why I thank the BET and the RTM and the BOC really being thoughtful. We spend a lot of money, but they do it in a thoughtful way, and we want to make sure that, you know, our future residents know that what's coming. So that's why we're trying to be transparent here and just let everybody know what the costs are. Operating budget. Okay, so if you look at here, the town services at 3%, Board of Ed, which you'll hear about in a few minutes, 5.65. So the total expense is 4.76. Dr. Jones is going to cover some of that, but I want to just get to the charter language here, just to let people know again. Governed by Article 2, Section 21B of the Town Charter, the first selectman shall review all proposed budgets received and shall make such revisions and modifications in such proposed budgets as the first selectman deems necessary or appropriate, except for the operations budgets being submitted by the Board of Education. I was joking with Dr. Jones before. I've got a couple more calls today from people, some wanting more money spent on the Board of Ed and some less, and they're getting on me about it. So I said I got enough problems. So we have to just keep clarifying that because it gets confusing to people. So just want to let people know, remind people again what we're tasked with doing and what we're really have authority over. Fiscal year 25 budget summary, town services. So if you look at here, a couple things are going to jump out at you. Right? Some are pretty even. Some are actually in deficit, which is great. But God bless you. The fire is 6.39, and of course you'll see down at the bottom, Parks and Rec 4.61. The reason for that is fire has an increase in wages. Higher than usual retirement, and that means there's more PPE and tuition for the new people coming in, a true-up of maintenance costs. Parks and Recreation, we're adding back the budget for the Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center, as well as an increase in staffing to run a new and bigger and much better building. So that's where that's coming from. But even with all of that, it's at 3%. Fixed charges. Okay, so you look at healthcare, we knew was going up there, but it's kind of offset a little bit with the other post-employment benefits reduction and the pension contribution. That's all good. You'll also see other fixed charges. That's a big one, 18.18, and that's really due to an increase in debt service. Going back to what I mentioned before about these things costing money and going into the future. Fiscal year 25 budget summary revenue. We generally only talk about expenses, but we want to highlight the good changes to revenue, especially in all others. And all others include, these items here amount to 92% of the increased revenue. And so if you look at the fire plan review, that just, with the fire department, I want to thank them for doing that. There was $150,000 more from one year to the next in fees coming in from their reviews of plans, and also the municipal solid waste tipping fees. The Board of Selectmen hopes to vote on this on Thursday. Basically, that's an increase in the tonnage of the municipal solid waste fee for the tons, going from $112 to $119 of tipping fee. So it hasn't been raised in a while. It still puts us in line with other towns, so a lot of money's coming from there. The rental of town facilities, you'll see $241,000. $224,000 of that is coming from the new Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center. Headcount. I guess if you want to look at here, you'll see that the town's subtotal is less by 2.84 employees. The total of the BOE is less 17.28, and total negative 2012. The driving increase in the Cohen the town is the Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center coming back online. We're also adding 2 new positions. One is going to be code enforcement, quality of life, noise, zoning. We hear a lot about that. They've been asking for it for years. That's only getting worse and intensifying. We think that's really much needed. And also putting in somebody for sustainability to oversee energy management, sustainability, and coastal resiliency. Somebody could not only coordinate the efforts that the committees do, EMAC, Energy Management Advisory Committee, Sustainability, do a great job. But they're volunteers, and they don't have can't spend 24/7 on that. So this position actually is very needed to coordinate efforts, coastal resiliency. Lots of people in every single town in Connecticut are getting flooded out. They are very, very much interested in this. And also, we need somebody there to look at how we can claw back dollars from the state and from the federal government. They'll make this position more than pay for itself going forward. I'm sure the VET will be asking me about these positions next week. But we really think it puts us in a great position. And then, of course, Dr. Jones will address the headcount, good news there, in her presentation. Summary. Okay, how did we do compared to the BET guidelines? Well, we basically are right there. And I want to tell everybody, just about 2 weeks ago, we were about 1.2 million over that. A lot of tough decisions were made there. I know Ben and a lot of the department heads really worked hard on that, and I can't thank them enough. There's tough decisions because you really want to spend. We could have spent a lot more, but we wanted to really adhere to these guidelines. So we're basically right there, and the town is where we need to be. So that's on the town side, and again, you'll see fixed charges are a little over 2 million, and then you'll hear from the Board of Ed in a few minutes. Okay, so if you're looking at the main punchline here is look at the mill rate. Right now, we're presently at 11.762. If this were to pass as is tonight, it'd go up to just 11.881. That still puts Greenwich, with the exception of one town of less than 6,000 people, with the lowest mill rate in Connecticut, and providing all these services. We're very proud of that. So that we want to make sure that people understand that we spend a lot. We're spending a lot of money, but we're also keeping it. We're doing it in an efficient way and taking into consideration all those people here who aren't fixed incomes and love living here. We want to make sure that they are able to live here like everybody else going forward. Budget summary. Okay, operating budget. Continue. Additional services we're adding. Long-range capital plan, getting projects done that are important to the community, as we saw before with that survey. The mill rate recognizes the impact of property taxes on residents, all residents. So for transparency purposes, we took a taxpayer with a $1 million assessed home value, and they'll see an increase of $488 in property taxes this year if this budget passed as is. With that, I want to thank everybody who came tonight, especially Ben Branyan, Wendy Zhao, all of the department heads put so much time into this, all of our volunteers, and certainly all of you. I look forward to meeting with the Board of Ed, next week when they grill me. But also to all of you, and I look forward to listening to your comments on this presentation. Thanks again, everybody. God bless.
So thank you, Fred. We look forward to visiting with you over the next Tuesday, January 30th, and at our other February department meetings, if that's appropriate. So next, we welcome Karen Kowalski, the Chair of our Board of Education, and our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tony Jones, and I believe Blaise Leviton, the school's Chief Operating Officer, and they're going to present the fiscal year '25 Board of Education Schools Operating and Capital Budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have to hit anything? No, I can't. Okay. Just wondering if I had to hit a button. At our meeting, she got to hit a button, so just wanted to clarify. Thank you for having us here this evening. I've never had so much power in my hand with respect to this, so hopefully I won't screw this up. We are here tonight to introduce to our fellow BET members the Greenwich Board of Education's proposed budget for 2024-2025, both operating and capital. This is an extensive 12-month process that Dr. Jones and her administrators go through starting in June and July and August time period, looking through, as we have a chart, basically where we end up at the end of the year, and then we look at various points in time, building it out through September, when the administration then presents it, and then October, when the BOE reviews it, and many of you have attended many of our meetings or heard about them through the time period of October, November, and December, when we entertained many questions and many concerns about the budget and how we were going about it and how we came to our current number. Obviously, we, in January, February, and March, we are here presenting to you all, and then go through, and then in April and May, we go on to the RTM to present to the various committees. And then once that ends, we, unfortunately, Dr. Jones and her administration started all over again. So it never ends for the budgeting process. The preparation that goes into our budget looks at basically 6 different elements, right? We look at our strategic plan. Last year, we passed a new strategic plan. Dr. Jones and her administration look through that plan to see and assess what needs they will need for meeting our academic achievement goals that are set through that plan that was passed by the board. Obviously, it's reviewing our previous and current budgets. Those we drill down into those for purposes of understanding where we ended up. As many of you know, we have made interim requests throughout the years, particularly in our special ed function, so that we look at those to see where we anticipate future costs, as well as understanding our current expenditures, because we also go through a lot of, if you sit in our meetings, transfers where we move money around over the course of the year, where we may fall short in one area and where we can grab from another, and obviously that goes into our play throughout the building of the budget. We also, one of the key factors is looking at our enrollment projections. We do this constantly, I should probably say, with respect to enrollment, and that really is a driving force, right? The number of students that we have in our schools, but it's not just the number of students overall. I would bucket our students in 3 different categories that really drive the amount of our budget, which is, 1, our special ed students, but special ed now continues on to 2020, till they're 23, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Then our just regular education, as then well as pre-K, right? Because pre-K also drives our expenditures, because a lot of both our special ed and our pre-K present unknown figures at times, because we often don't know what kids are coming into our district, or even when, for that matter. We look at our staffing adjustments. As you know, we've adjusted our budget this year based upon some staffing changes, and that happens throughout the course of our examination. We look at just staffing needs in the sense of where we may have some shortfalls, but we also look at what is our retirement component, what teachers are rolling out of Greenwich Public Schools, and can we make adjustments in that factor using the fact of just natural attrition. Obviously, we're reviewing and estimating our fixed costs continuously fixed costs, obviously our contractual costs which relate to transportation, but also with respect to our salaries for teachers and other administrators in the district that are all based upon contracts. And then, last but not least, we are constantly, through Dr. Jones and her team's great efforts, are looking for where we can find any additional funds. It is an ongoing process. We've recently gone to the RTM for several grants in hopes that we can ascertain money back from our government for purposes of HVAC and otherwise. And so they're constantly looking for areas in which we can bring back money into Greenwich, because we all pay so many taxes out of Greenwich to our state and federal funds. So it'd be nice if we could get some back, particularly for education. Overview. We are, our budget is driven to accomplish several things. One, keeping us on track for purposes of our curriculum. Curriculum management is critical for purposes of staying in tune with the current academic needs of all of our kids, but also staying abreast of the top programs that are needed to make sure that our education here in Greenwich stays at the top of the state, if not across the country. Because if you look at where Greenwich public schools lie, in particular our high school, we are rated one of the very top high schools in the country when you think about all of the high schools that are here. And that's why Dr. Jones and her team is currently always evaluating our curriculum, which is also a budget driver. We look to address chronic structural budget gaps. And to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what our structural budget gaps are, and I'll let the gentleman in casually red, white, and blue talk to that further. Here's a main driver of this year's particular budget, which is meeting our legal mandates, such as the pre-K and SPED legislation. As I mentioned earlier, pre-K has now changed. The state now has moved back the date by which children can go into kindergarten, giving the opportunity for parents to make a decision to keep their children into pre-K, which changes how we look at the cost and the number of kids, which affects the number of teachers and and of course the number of sections that we have to have. And by the way, pre-K starts at the age of 3, and they can only enter at the age of 3, which means that it's a rolling basis. So it's not just a time period, it's not just we can capture that all at the end of August and starting in September, because we have kids that roll in through the district as soon as they turn 3. So if they turn 3 in April, we welcome them in, as we have to. So that always is a challenge in how we manage our budget. And as I mentioned, with respect to SPED legislation, now we provide an education through our community curriculum throughout the age of 23, which previously, right, do I have that right? That was not the case, which means we are now providing services to children longer, and those are our kids with that require special needs through that age, which is at what previously had been an unfunded mandate in our budget. We continue to implement our special education action plan, and for those of you who have been watching the board, we've taken a strong focus on our special education program, and through the works of Dr. Stacy, which I'm not going to pronounce her last name right, so I'm just going to call her Dr. Stacy H. Dr. Stacy H. has done a fabulous job in order to help revamp our special education program. We had consultants come in several years ago, PCG, that pointed out all of the things that we were doing, I'm not going to say wrong, but we could do definitely better with respect to special education. And with regard to special education, we've been putting that plan in focus, which obviously has put into effect some new programs, which we we will be talking about those success rates coming up at some future meetings. We've asked for some data on those, but we did put in 2 programs into place, particularly at Cos Cob Elementary, which was our Unique Learners program, as well as a co-taught program there. both of which we will be looking at to see if we're reaping the benefits of that. But as we build out that program and as our special education population increases, which Dr. Jones is going to talk about in a little bit, we need that need for additional funds will continue to drive part of our budget analysis. Obviously, the key to every good student is an excellent teacher. And in order to provide excellent teachers, we want to make sure that our professional development is fully funded. Just like most of us in our professional careers, we go to conferences and we're learning new things and extra educational elements in order to make sure that we're staying on top of our own career. Well, teachers do that too. And it's part of our obligation to make sure that our teachers are on the cutting edge of new teaching tools, is, I guess, the best way to say it. So that's why we make sure that our professional development is funded to make sure that our teachers are providing the best services to our most special assets, our children. Our 2024-2025 operating budget summary. The proposed budget is $192,624,020. It's an increase over our last year's budget by 5.6%. I believe the BET guidance that we received in December was 4.3%. Obviously, there's a slight difference. One of the ways in which we've been looking at this is with respect to our SPED interim. As many of you may know, we recently went to the BET, which then was also approved by the RTM, an additional amount for special education, which was going to the unfunded mandate that I just recently mentioned. And if we were to take our 2023-2024 operating budget and include that additional component that we needed for this year to get through for special education, really our adjusted year-to-year increase for our operating budget is only 4.2%. Is that you? All right. Yeah, I'm done. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jones, who's going to run through the rest.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kowalski. And as Karen mentioned, we do have a brand-new strategic plan that was passed last April that is driving a lot of the work that we're doing in the school district right now. She's mentioned our special education action plan. We also have a very strong literacy program in the science of reading. You've probably heard a lot about that in the news. We've been working on it now for 5 years. We have a systemic implementation for math across all of our schools, and that goes all the way into high school. We are also working to strengthen our home-to-school connection, our sense of student belonging, and that really just means we want every student to love coming to school, be connected with the adults in our buildings. And we also want to continue to work on having a positive working environment for all of our teachers and all of our staff in Greenwich Public Schools. So I have just a couple of slides that are celebratory in many ways for us. What this is showing is our STAR early literacy results. And on the left-hand side, you're looking at kindergarten in the orange and the blue. The right-hand side is first grade. And what you can see here is going back to 2016, 2017, before we had a really strong phonics program that we had implemented, those were the results that we were getting for likely readers that are in orange. Now that we have really enhanced our reading program across our entire school district, it's showing in our results. It's showing in the investment that we're making in our children in our classrooms. We also have NGSS, which is the Next Generation Science Standards. We take a test at elementary, we take one at middle school, and the junior year of high school. And this is just a prime example of the phenomenal work that our staff are doing in middle school. And just over the last 2 years, we've grown almost 15% in our Next Generation Science Standards for 8th grade. And not only are we doing some wonderful work, I'll talk in a minute about the research program that's also been added. Our advanced placement results continue to increase year over year, and this didn't change during COVID. Our students really did phenomenal work during some of the most challenging times. We are giving more tests, and we're doing phenomenal in how they are actually getting a 3, 4, or 5, which means that they're getting college credit, and that's exactly what we want to see for our young people. We had the strongest college readiness score last year that we've seen in several years at 91%. And then you'll also notice the number of AP tests down below increased by almost 90 tests. So again, really excited with the results that we're seeing in our academics. When we look at our homeschool connection, I think what this survey data really says to us, we survey our parents, our students, and our teachers at the end of every single year. We get a tremendous return rate on our surveys. And over the last 4 years, we've seen us go from 67% satisfactory to last year 87%. And what this says is that our parents who have children in our schools love their schools. And they're telling us that. And we're working really hard to have a strong partnership with our parents. Student belonging, again, especially coming out of COVID, this is something that we wanted to see. We want all of our students to really want to be at school, be connected in school. And again, you're seeing going from 55% up to 72%. We've seen the strongest growth in elementary, followed by middle, and then high. And we want to continue to see this also continue to strengthen over the next year or two. When we look at our staff and our school climate, while we've made growth, and again, coming out of probably one of the hardest times ever, having been a teacher, we want to see this continue to improve. We're not happy with that 68%. We think we can be better and we can do better for teachers and for our staff. But I will say, when you look at the teacher statistics, we are far better off in Greenwich than almost anywhere else in the country. But we want to continue to work on this. But it's also way beyond standardized test scores. And I think anybody that picks up Greenwich Times or Free Press or any of our local press, we're celebrating our students and our staff almost every single day for the wonderful things that happen out in our schools. Our students are getting recognized not only locally, but nationally and internationally. So are our teachers. And this is just kind of an array of various celebrations that happened over the last year. And more than anything, we're really excited about this year. This is very recent. We have 7 schools that were named Schools of Distinction for the state of Connecticut this year. Eastern Middle School, Hamilton Avenue School, International School of Dundee, North Mianus, North Street, Parkway, and Riverside. But probably the thing we are most proud about is not only were we recognized for performing well, but every single school was noted for high growth. And again, that says where we're putting our investments in curriculum and instruction is working, and we're really excited about that. Now I'm going to give just a few slides on student demographics and enrollment. Our enrollment right now is sitting at 8,611, and this was as of October 1st. It does change slightly throughout the year, but usually we don't see huge swings once the school year starts. We very much are watching our kindergarten numbers. Kindergarten is usually driven by birth rate. It's literally how many children are born in this Greenwich area. And kindergarten enrollment this last year, this current year, we were 101 students above projections. Makes a difference because it makes a difference in how many classrooms we planned for and how many we needed when school actually started. And one of the reasons we're seeing that is it's largely due to families moving into Greenwich for kindergarten. But again, as Karen mentioned earlier, we're also looking at a legislative change for kindergarten next year. So we're a little bit unclear about what kindergarten is going to look like going into next year. This is our birth rate when you look at Greenwich. So our 2023 kindergarten class, there were 542 children that were born. And if you go back on the far left-hand side, you can see where they were closer to those 600s. Again, this is often how we look at kindergarten. The demographers look at how many children are born in this area. What we are seeing that's unique is the in-migration, and that's the far right-hand side of this graph. So although our birth rate is lower, we're seeing 500s instead of 600s, that orange line at the top, those are all those houses that are selling. people who are choosing to move into Greenwich, and they are choosing our public school system, which we're very, very proud about. But that is driving that kindergarten number higher than projection. Again, it's all the housing sales. So this will be an interesting trend to watch over the next few years. It will be very much driven by the housing market. So we have people sometimes that will say, is enrollment going down? I get that question a lot. We haven't really seen huge swings in enrollment. We had a 3-year period, which just happens to coincide actually with COVID, and that's that orange band in the middle. We had 3 years with just very large senior classes, 700-ish, and 3 years with very small kindergartens. So just with that year over year in those 3 years, we lost about 360 students. That's really what that's talking about. But again, in the last 2 years, what we're seeing with the in-migration, the housing market, and the birth rate, we simply don't know what we don't know going forward. When you look at our enrollment history, and this goes all the way back to the 1960s, 1963, 64, and we're nowhere near where we were, where we had 11,000 students, but we're also nowhere near where we were when we had the trough, when we were low, just above 6,000. So again, what we're seeing is really, with our enrollment, it looks like this. Very much a leveling out. We're seeing small changes here and there, and we'll continue to watch that trend over the next few years. Where we have seen our growth absolutely double, more than double, is preschool, and Karen mentioned that. You don't know how many children are going to qualify for preschool, and preschool is required by federal law. So these are only the students who actually qualify for the program. There are other students who are also in those classrooms. So because we have doubled, we now have 16 classrooms of preschool. We could fill an entire elementary with just preschool. We were not that way 10 years ago. Our English language program continues to grow. The blue is elementary, orange is middle, green is high, and you'll see it slightly going up. But then when you go back and you start looking at what it looked like even during COVID, you'll notice that second bar over, when we were opening schools in 2020, we actually lost about 65 or 70 of our English language learner students who unenrolled for whatever reason. We're seeing that now continue to climb, and so that's why when you look over on the right, we're up to 472 students, or up 1.5% just across the district in these very few years, which means we need more staff, we need more EL services for children. We also know that during COVID, our free and reduced numbers looked artificially low, and that's because the federal government was providing lunch free to any student who attended any school in the United States. So people stopped turning in their forms. So it's looking like we're trending back up again. We're really going back up where we really probably should be, and it should be a little bit higher than this, and we're going to continue to try and collect those forms, because we do have grants that are directly tied to the number of free and reduced students we have in the district. When you look at our special education population, and again, Karen mentioned this earlier, we are up 189 students just from 2019 to 2023, just in the last few years. We've gone from a 10% special education population to now 14. Do we expect this to continue? Absolutely. Part of that is the plan that we have and the work that we've done with special education in our action plan, but we also know the state is at 17%, and some of our colleagues just up the road are at 18 and 19. So we expect this is probably going to continue to climb. And I just, for one point in reference, for every 15 to 24 students we add, we need a special education teacher. That's a caseload. And some of those children also need speech services, psychological services, and the more students that we test, the more psychologists we have to do that testing to meet those federal deadlines and timelines. So when we look at our K-5 classrooms over time, we have gone down 19 classrooms, and we call them sections, and that's been since 2016, 2017. But when you look at those 19 classrooms, most of those it's been very helpful because we're able to take that position and then turn that into a special education position or an EL position or a preschool position without coming and just asking for all of those extra positions we would need for our unique programs. So we've been really fortunate that we have at least seen this trend over the last couple of years. And now I'm going to turn the historical budget trends over to Blaise Levitin, who is our Chief Operating Officer.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go very fast, but we are going to post this online, so you'll be able to see it later. So historical budget trends. What we're showing here, our actual spending is the blue, and you can see that our operating budget request year over year. Basically, just what you can take away from this is that for 5 consecutive years, the operating budget for the Board of Ed has been below the inflation rate. And 6 out of the last 10, it's been below the inflation rate. And more importantly, you hear a lot from both town departments and the Board of Ed, the pressure of labor contracts on the rest of the budget. So you can see basically that if the operating budget is coming in at less than the contractual plus the average step rate, for the last 10 years, the funding pressure is being placed somewhere else. That's typically on your supplies and services. So the drivers really, how do we build our budget? The focus of the budget is at the school level. That's the foundational pieces. We then build upon with the most basic elements of transportation, facilities in our buildings. We then try to focus on the programming that actually occurs at the school level. And we then take a look at our district-wide programs. The biggest district-wide program you've heard about all night is the special ed programming and support at the classroom level. Everything else kind of fits into that district-wide bucket. And it's capped off by all the administrative and business functions, every single function in the entire Board of Education budget. And where is spending actually going? You can see that, the spending is primarily going, where we want it to be going, which is at the school-based level and instructional-based level. We have done a really good job in cost containment, all administrative and business functions for an entity the size of the Board of Ed at 4%. These are actual spending. And even when you look at our 17 facilities on the maintenance costs, we're really trying, you can see some strong efforts in cost containment. What does that look like going from the budget that was before the town last year, 24 to 25? The bulk of the budget is the contractual salary increases, right? So over, 5.5 million is just your GWI plus step. We then, you heard Karen and Tony talk about our fixed costs, like our transportation contract. We then looked at tackling a number of structural budget gaps. The Board of Ed has had budget freezes for 4 years straight in a row. We've come for 2 interims now, 2 years in a row for special ed. The budget here is focusing at 5.6% on tackling some chronic budget pressures that many of the BET members have had to hear about, over and over again. And we looked at how could we address them. That's your special ed services, your day subs, the churn on the retirement savings, utilities, and the per pupil allocation at GHS, which we'll talk about in 1 second, and then facility overtime. We've seen in our actual spending that we've been under budget in those key areas, and those have been the source of the freeze for the last 4 years in a row. We also have the end of the American Rescue Plan federal funding, another thing we'll be talking about at length, and this budget absorbs the special education positions that were being funded by the American Rescue Plan, and that's been the main focus. The Board of Ed did reduce 11 certified teaching positions. They also zeroed out the curriculum investment for 25 to use American Rescue Plan funds to accelerate that investment, and that was nearly $800,000. Every single thing else is the rest of the budget. That gets us at your 5.6%. And as Karen mentioned, if we look at the unfunded mandate we received from the state on special ed at the legal change for age qualifying for local services, and you go revised budget to original budget, you're at 4.4. Of the 5.6%, this is the same exact thing I just showed, but for people that are numbers people, and it's 3.8% of the 5.6, right, is your salary and contractual obligations. The rest of that is your special education, your subs, just our day sub budget alone is 0.5% of the entire budget increase. Special education tuition, I won't belabor the point. You've heard at length that the special education and outplacement tuition has placed significant growth. The blue line, the two blues that you see there are the two interims back-to-back that the Board of Ed has had to come. And for context, 3 age changes by the state back to back to back. It was 21 for services. It was the birth day of the 22nd birthday, and then now it is the school year in which they turn 22, the full school year. That one was just passed in June and took effect immediately for this school year. And so that was the driving reason for the interim that we came for, that the town funded for the special ed services. Day subs. Pre-COVID, you can see the actuals on the blue line where actuals sat close to 1 million. Post-COVID, we're seeing almost a 90% increase in that. 2 reasons. One, the base pay remains $110 a day for subs. However, we've had to build in, like most of the other districts in the county, to be competitive, and we're having a hard time filling them. The incentives, that's a 40 to 50% increase in the base pay for people that work consecutive days as subs. That did not include a corresponding budget increase, and you can see the gap. You can see the gap in the green there in the budget year that we have actually currently that we're working on absorbing right now in the fiscal year 24 budget at the Board of Ed. And in 25, we're looking to fix that issue. We are post-COVID. We see during COVID, if we just take the average month, we were running over 300 subs, day subs a month. These are not your long-term subs. These are just day subs for certified teaching positions. And we're running a similar average, slightly higher now. What that implies post-COVID is that we're not seeing a decrease in the use of the day subs, and it's a significant budget pressure. Utilities placing a continued pressure on the operating budget. And this is an analysis that Patrick Lai, our new budget management director, has been doing to really tackle on where the salaries sit on the contractual wage scale. And basically, we really have no teachers that are at the bachelor degree steps, and we have almost no teachers that are at your entry-level steps. What that tells us is that we used to assume as well that we would see what the Board of Ed refers to as a churn or salary retirement savings, maybe $40,000, $60,000 eventually when a retiring top step teacher. We're bringing in teachers. We have almost none that are at low end and mid-step ranges. What that means is that we're not bringing in entry-level teachers at entry-level steps. We're bringing them in at higher-level steps, and you can assume for this budget a $10,000 to $15,000 savings when somebody retires, not a $50,000 to $60,000 savings that you might have seen maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Per pupil allocation continues inflation adjusted. It's been straight for over 10 years. The Board of Ed this year in this budget included a 10% increase at the elementary school per pupil adjustment. It's still down about 20% inflation adjusted over 10 years, but we're taking a step in the right direction. The per pupil funding is how we fund the school level non-contractual supplies. It's basically the principal's entire budget for the discretionary spending at the school level. We will hear a lot, I think, when we're talking with the BET, we're going to talk a lot about FTE. And one of the challenges, I think, that we discovered this year is that FTE counts are likely, depending on different books, there's been various definitions between the Board of Ed's book and the town's budget book. There's also different numbers of growth. What we did this year, working with Roland, is we do have a consistent definition for both entities for what an FTE counts as for both departments, including especially for teachers. And the other point that we're trying to figure out right now is there's some budget books you might see a certified staffing growth of 30 FTE over the last 10 years. What we're trying to do, I'm not sure on the confidence I would have on some of the prior FTE numbers. I know that this year we took the count and head count directly from the ADP payroll system, and we mapped it out exactly to every single position that's operating with a consistent definition across both entities. But this takes a look at, which gives me even less confidence in some of the numbers that I've been seeing, actual spending. If you look at the percent change year over year, it's almost been regularly less than the GWI in the contract, and then also the GWI plus STEP. It's definitely been less, which makes me rethink if I was seeing a significant growth in certified headcount. This is only certified staffing. I would be anticipating, which is shown in the budget book. So just, it's shown in the budget book like that. We would expect to be seeing a similar growth year over year in actual spending, and this is cause for more analysis on the Board of Ed's FTE. For actual, the operating budget, 70% of the budget is salary. Of the salary expense, 92% is focused on instructional salaries. And our transportation expense, we keep seeing another theme will be a growing disproportionate pressure of special ed funding. We also fund private school transportation out of the Board of Ed's operating budget. This is just another graphical way where we're showing where the spending is going. At the school level, the only thing that I wanted to give context to is at the school level, you can see the proportional allocation of what the per pupil budget is compared to the rest of the school. It's really almost nothing. Like at an elementary school, it's $60,000 to $70,000. This is extremely impactful to the school, but the driver of the cost, right, is the headcount and the salary. Right here is just a breakdown, and we'll post this on where the budget is broken down by category and where the budget growth is. It's in the areas we want to see it, but specifically, you'll see the chronic budget pressures being addressed, 17% at the district level. That's your special ed and your day subs, and utility cost, 8%. You can see maintenance going up. Business and administrative functions going down, 2%. The revenue that we return to the town of Greenwich, you can also see where last year we adjusted for the excess cost. This year we're planning on going up, projecting about $250,000 on our revenue. Switching over, and I apologize for speaking so quickly, but I'm being mindful of the time and the amount of people we have to speak. The capital budget, we again coordinated with the town. The Board of Ed voted early this year to make sure we could get it to the first selectman's office. They voted on October 19th. That was before a couple of the interims we put forward, so you'll see some double counting in our original submission that was posted online to the town. Our capital process, we did an extensive review of our 15-year capital plan. Last year, we really did a lot of good work of kind of merging into the town's budgeting format and using the town's 15-year plan, CIP sheets, and I think we're now really able this year for a second year to able to build on that process. Open capital, what we do is look at our ability to execute on open capital, as well as the funds that we're able to close out and return. For the last year and a half, we've really been focusing on trying to close out capital accounts that have been open for long periods of time, and move on to new projects that are wrapped up. We only really have a 16-week window to execute most of the capital, so you'll see a lot of multi-year projects. But what we can see here is on some of the prior years, we have strong capital execution. The Board of Ed's capital budget, when we submitted it to the first selectman's office, was $118.5 million. The $49.5 million of that was the inflation-adjusted number for Central Middle School, which was funded as an interim, and that project is removed from the capital budget. If you remove that, we're at $69,090,000, and 62% of that is the Old Greenwich project that First Selectman Camillo just mentioned. Central Middle School, you can see that this has now been funded as an interim. The total project cost is $112 million, and we still need to work with the delegation to ensure that the 2024 grant process at the state is added, that the project's added to the grant list. We do have a great building committee there. We have another great building committee on the Old Greenwich project, and the best number we have right now, the building committee is still working, is the $43 million. That's the inflation-adjusted number that the building committee presented to the BOE and BET back in October. They are going to be coming likely again in March after the design documents are completed and they've reached the next critical phase of the project. The best estimate we do have right now on the effective reimbursement rate from the state is 15.6%. So the standard reimbursement rate is 20%, but based on the information we know now, at the moment, it's 15.6%. And that's important for debt service modeling. Julian Curtis, you'll see at 3.2 million. It's a targeted phase project this year focusing on the cafeteria as well as millwork and equipment throughout the building. Working last year with the First Selectman's Office, we've been trying to address the critical safety issue of no cell service at the high school. We did try to coordinate on a private cell tower approach. This year, after doing that, it's been, we've worked jointly to kind of determine that that's not a viable option. So you'll see a request. We did break it up over 2 years to make it a more tolerable funding approach to target the most critical areas of the building first. We also had submitted in our submission $150,000 to start feasibility and ed specs for the Riverside School project, which is the next project on the list. The one update, so we have in our fiscal year 25, 3.8 million. Part of that was just a placeholder. We contracted with a architectural and engineering firm, Silver Petroselli and Associates, to basically do a master plan of every single building and achieve ADA compliance throughout the entire district. The goal here is to put together a multi-year prioritized plan focused on ADA compliance throughout the entire district. We anticipate that we will be able to have a presentation for the community on the findings and the next steps in March. So likely looking at a fiscal year 26 discussion. The nice thing too is that we're working with like Parks and Recreation as well as DPW to ensure that we have a nice consistent approach to definitions and prioritization across the town for ADA compliance throughout the whole town. So our final thoughts here, we've been working really hard to try to coordinate with our town partners on capital. We're starting to build on the fact that we had an original master plan. We migrated over to the 15-year capital planning model of the town. We're working on updating the district needs with a focus on HVAC, security, life safety, and ADA compliance. We will have some critical pieces of data to the budget on Old Greenwich and ADA, which are large-scale pressure points. Again, that's a 5.6% increase on the operating budget year to year, 4.2% as Karen just had presented it with the adjusted view, and a capital budget without CMS, which was funded as an interim by $69,090,000. And I know that was fast, so I was mindful of everybody's time, and thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward.
Thank you, Karen, Tony, and Blaze. We look forward to collaborating with you during the fiscal year 25 budget department meeting days. And the schools department meeting will be held on Thursday, February 1. We now come to the public hearing section. Speakers will be taken in the order signed, and we look forward to hearing your input. And I think, again, if anyone wants to sign up and hasn't signed up yet, they could please bring the forms over to our controller, Pete Minarski. Yep. Oh, underneath. And that would be very helpful to us. David Weisbrod will call the names of the speaker and the follow-on speaker who should be prepared to come to the podium. Each speaker is asked to introduce themselves and their organization or location of their residence. You just need to make sure that the green light is on the speaker on the podium up here. Public speakers are limited to 3 minutes, which will dead stop. And Pete Minarski, who you've met before, is our timekeeper. Please accommodate the large number of fellow speakers and be efficient with your time. If not needed, do not use the full time provided. We would appreciate speakers not being repetitive with previous speakers and not repeating remarks submitted in writing through the form process. The forms link will be open through the remainder of the public hearing or 11:59 p.m., whichever is earlier. All forms, after redacting private information, including email addresses or telephone numbers, will be posted on the BET Budget Committee webpage for today's presentations and public hearing. So we thank you for your interest and for participating in the fiscal year 25 budget process. We value our dialogue with you, our fellow town citizens. David will call the name of the speaker and the speaker to follow. So again, please be ready when called. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leslie. First speaker will be Jen Bencivengo, followed by Carrie Bisbee.
Good evening, members of the BET, friends, and neighbors. My name is Dr. Jennifer Bencivengo, and I'm the very proud principal of over 400 OGS Dolphins and counting, because enrollment is consistently on the rise at OGS. Our school building project is before you for the 7th consecutive year. First in 2018, when we asked for but were denied initial feasibility study funding for our school. This is my 7th consecutive public hearing and 14th speech before you requesting the prioritization of our school buildings needs. Thank you to Mr. Camillo for including OGS in the proposed capital budget for this year. Old Greenwich is blessed to have the hardest working building committee in the town of Greenwich. As of this week, our tireless committee and team of professionals have completed design development and spent extensive hours exploring all of the nuances that come with renovating a now 122-year-old building. Thank you for the opportunity to remind you that by prioritizing OGS, you are ensuring a remedy for safety, accessibility, and sewage remediation. Our renovation will ensure that students, faculty, and staff have a single, safe, secure entryway, adequate HVAC in every classroom, a fully accessible building inclusive of not only a ground-level entry and elevator, but classrooms with appropriate door widths, plumbing with wheelchair accessibility, among countless other remediations necessary to ensure no student ever has to spend months in a classroom alone with a sub because they have a broken leg and can't get to their third-floor class. Finally, in addition to addressing sewage remediation, we will be thrilled to see the installation of a full sprinkler system, ensuring we are meeting the National Fire Protection Association's requirements of the 1950s, about 74 years behind the time in this basic fire safety protocol. Finally, I would like to thank Mr. Camillo for the prioritization of the Shore Road and Sound Beach sidewalks. Old Greenwich takes a page out of the books of our Northern European cousins, with the vast majority of our 400 students walking, biking, or arriving on our plaza via box bike. In fact, our architect and landscape designers have allocated additional bike racks after seeing the endless rows of bikes looking more like the banks of the canals in Amsterdam than any other school in town. It is long past time to prioritize the safety of the children, families, faculty, and staff of Old Greenwich. With the full support of the Board of Education, First Selectman, RTM District 6, Planning and Zoning, and the Architectural Review Boards, we now look only to the BET to take the next steps in prioritizing our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie Bisbee, followed by James Walsh.
Good evening. I'm Carrie Bisbee, a Riverside School parent, former PTA president, and current PTAC Facilities Committee member. First, I ask that you fund the full BOE operating budget as presented by Dr. Jones. I also speak on behalf of Riverside families who continue to stand in support of the OGS renovation and ask that you expeditiously approve the construction funds to advance that project. As CMS and OGS both inch closer to their construction phase, it is now time to get Riverside in the hopper. To that end, Riverside families ask that you approve the $150,000 feasibility study in the BOE's fiscal 25 capital budget. When the facilities master plan was approved, it identified Riverside as one of the schools in greatest need for improvements, and it provided a scheme for how the building could be converted to a modern facility. 6 years later, that scheme has become less useful as it's aged, thereby making a feasibility study all the more necessary to determine, at this point in time, the appropriate scope and corresponding cost of the project. Whatever the scope turns out to be, improvements are sorely needed. The building is not configured for 21st century learning, and it is not accessible. The second floor, which contains homerooms for 250 students and some specialist classrooms for all students can only be reached via 2 sets of stairs. In its current layout, our building is also space constrained. This year's 10% increase in enrollment brought us to the brink of not having enough classrooms for core instruction and with little capacity to absorb new enrollees, as a number of class sections are already at or now above the district's class size guidelines. Meanwhile, some specialist instruction occurs in places like the media center or a vestibule because no other space is available. These points about the need for facility improvements have the full endorsement of our school's new and former administrative leadership, including our recently departed longtime principal who previously advocated for this funding to the BET. We acknowledge that our town is already in the midst of funding multiple major projects that are underway at other schools, but we ask that you keep the momentum, particularly in light of the recent resident survey, where quality of education was deemed the most important issue and the condition of our school buildings one of the biggest concerns. As BET members, you are tasked with creating a fiscally responsible budget that reflects the priorities of the residents you were elected to serve. Thus, your remit is clear. Make the investment to modernize our schools, including the first phase of the Riverside project in fiscal '25. Thank you for your time and everything you do for our community.
James Walsh, followed by Molly Salibi.
Hey, good evening, all. I'm here tonight to ask you to keep our children in mind as this process moves forward over the next few weeks, and not cut the proposed funding for traffic and pedestrian safety improvements to our school buildings or any portion of the school budget. The children of Greenwich deserve to have well-rounded and top-notch curriculum offerings, attend school in safe and modern buildings, and feel they can walk or bike to school without fear. If we continue to cut, nickel and dime our school properties, our buildings, our educational offerings, we'll start down the path where our facilities and educational experience will be so vastly different from local independent schools and other public schools in southwestern Connecticut, parents will look elsewhere to send their kids rather than our phenomenal GPS. The proposals put before you tonight about the schools have been well thought out and assembled after months of discussion and hard work from both the Board of Ed and the First Selectman. If you do find yourself thinking about cutting the proposed funds for our school buildings, educational offerings, or pedestrian safety, I ask you to look for creative ways to keep those funds fully intact, as the BET can do. Maybe the town gets creative and trades expensive granite curb for cheaper asphalt. Or maybe we decide to save money by 1 leaf pickup instead of 2. Or we could also take advantage of the new guidelines by the State Department of Transportation and place speed cameras near our schools. That would not only bring revenue, but will also make safer streets for students who walk, bike, or scoot to schools. These are just a few of what I'm sure many, many examples of where we can find funds. The children of Greenwich deserve to have the same opportunities to learn in a safe building and receive a well-rounded curriculum as their peers do at local independent and neighboring public schools. They deserve to walk or bike or scoot to schools along safe routes. They deserve this every step of their pre-K to 12 experience while at GPS, this year, next year, and every year in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, James. James, would you please either identify your organization or your residence, which just helps us keep track of people?
Sorry, I
you
thought
don't
that was
mind.
all in the form. James Walsh, Coscob, Connecticut.
Thank you. Welcome, Molly.
Molly Salibi, followed by Peter Scher.
Okay, good evening. For the record, Molly Salibi, RTM District 8 Vice Chair, lifelong resident. It's my 4th term on the RTM with my 3rd on the Budget Overview Committee, and I'm also a proud member of the Old Greenwich School Building Committee, where it's a great privilege and pleasure to serve. Every single BET member is familiar with me, and tonight is my 8th consecutive year appearing before the board here. I wasn't going to speak, as I've often questioned the value of these hearings, and I've walked away deeply disappointed from so many budget decisions in the past. But I would be remiss to not advocate for students like I always do, and I focus only on OGS tonight. Please fund construction for the renovation. The time is now and time is up. Numerous BET members on both sides have publicly stated support, and you need to follow up with money. There has already been a great deal of dialogue over the last 12 months. Continue to ask questions. You'll continue to get the answers, but you must determine how to fund it with an emphasis on how. Your top charge, as I see it, is to determine how to finance. It was stated last year at budget presentation that we only do one school project at a time and that OGS would be next year. So here we are, and it's next year. We came to you on a few occasions in the interim asking for construction funds because the project was moving along and it appeared that Central wouldn't be fully funded. We felt that was responsible. We were pushed off, but here we are again now at the time we were promised. We are a deeply talented and efficient committee, and it's been said we are a model for how building committees should function. We have a singular objective to satisfy the educational specifications in as cost-effective a manner as possible, and we are doing just that. Students and staff and the community are waiting. Fund construction. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Peter Scher, followed by David Lancaster.
Hi, I think you know me, but for the record, Peter Scher, I live in Riverside. Ready? Yes. Okay. Good evening, BET Budget Committee members. I had a lot to say, but now that I've seen the charts from the Board of Education, I will tell you I'm actually shocked, and you should be too. Those charts, I actually know how to read because I did 12 Board of Ed budgets. Leslie Moriarty can read them too. I need to tell you, that Board of Ed budget, I am amazed at how out of control the fiscal situation is at the Board of Education. It's shocking. And I can't tell you enough, you guys have work to do. I want to give you 5 numbers to consider. 300, 19.7, 3, 567, 33. 10 years ago, these were the reality of Greenwich Public Schools when our very own Mrs. Moriarty was the BOE chair. 300. Greenwich schools had 300 more students than they do today. 19.7. The average elementary class size was 19.7. The elementary class size today, 19.7. 3. There were 3 advanced learning programs, English, math, and science, in all elementary schools, fully staffed, full amount of class allotted time. 567. 567 was the mean SAT score in 2014. It's the same score today. 33. This is the most important number. The educational program was delivered with 33 less teachers than Superintendent Jones proposed in this budget. 300, 19.7, 3, 33, 567. How is it possible that in 2013-14, the superintendent and that team could deliver the entire educational program with 33 less certified teachers and 300 more kids? Dr. Jones says she can. Anticipating the political smoke machine that will object to these facts, parents might well think something else was different. You'd be wrong. 33% of student population was minority in 2014. Same percentage as right now. 5.5% were English language learners. Exact same percentage right now. Teacher pay then, highest in Connecticut. Today, still the highest in Connecticut. Sadly, overall academic achievement in English, math, and science, same performance now as then. Net, in 2013-14, there were more students, less teachers, same demographics, same academic performance, same ALP program. The only thing that's different is the central office and the leadership team. Greenwich teachers and staff are amazing. They're not the issue. The lack of innovative educational strategy, and strong management, and good governance are. I hope that you will live what you've said when you ran for office, all of you. Fix schools with fiscal discipline and low taxes. Let's make sure it wasn't just politics when you ran in November. It's time to find out.
David Lancaster, followed by Claire Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Lancaster. I'm a 4th-generation native of Greenwich. I live right next to North Minas School, where my mother attended, as did I and the rest of my family. We are all the products of Greenwich Public Schools. Although I no longer have school-aged children, I am a strong supporter of Greenwich Public Schools. I work in finance and decided to check out the facts about school funding in our town. This is what I found out from audited, published data from the town, state, and federal government. Number one, our town spends the most per student of any district with over 2,000 students in Connecticut, by a lot. $26,695 per child, 7% higher than Westport, 11% more than Darien, 18% more than New Canaan, and 19% more than Fairfield. So I wondered, where was the money going? Our teachers, number two, our teachers earn the most in Connecticut. Their top pay level is much higher than other comparable school districts. In fact, over the typical tenure of a teacher, they are paid $356,000 more than a teacher working in the next highest Fairfield County district. 3, Greenwich spends a lot on special education. It turns out we spend 15% more per special education student than the next highest Fairfield County district. In the last reported data, Greenwich spends $45,660 per student, 15% more than Darien, 17% more than Fairfield, 18% more than Westport. I have worked in finance all my professional life, and I currently work for the London Stock Exchange. I know budgets and I know numbers. If these were the facts in the real world, with 20% of our children not reading at grade level, you would conclude one thing. We don't have a money problem, we have a management problem. The facts supporting this conclusion, the facts support this conclusion, and as President John Adams famously said, facts are stubborn things. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Claire Johnson, followed by Jody Stewart.
Good evening. My name is Claire Johnson, and I live in Riverside, Connecticut. As co-president of the Riverside School PTA and a parent of 3 GPS children, I am deeply invested in our town and our children's education. Our family chose to move to Greenwich because of the caliber of its public schools. I'm here speaking to you tonight because I feel we are approaching a critical turning point in the direction of our leading public school system. Our district's inflation-adjusted spend per student continues to decline, and this is negatively impacting the student and teacher experience. For example, class sizes have ballooned. There are 26 students in each of our 4th grade classrooms. We've seen this trend across the district, with K-5 classroom sizes up 6% in just 2 years. Oversized classes strain our teachers and impact their ability to do their best work. As parents, it feels like we are having to fight for essential programs which are proven to greatly improve learning and wellness. Members of our community are unified behind a common concern. If the BOE's needs-driven budget is not fully approved, we will diminish the quality of education in our schools. Everyone here tonight ultimately wants the same thing: a prosperous town for generations to come. Providing support to ensure that our public schools thrive is a keystone. The 5 top-ranked school districts in Connecticut are also the towns with the highest property values. This underscores the undeniable link between the quality of public education and property values. Moreover, if the BET does not approve the full budget, GPS's budgeted spend per student next year will be less than that of Darien. This puts us at risk of losing both teachers and new residents to other towns that are prioritizing the quality of their schools. In closing, we implore you to fund the full BOE operating budget. The proposed budget is reasonable, and supporting it reflects our commitment to investing in the long-term prosperity of our town. Let's prioritize our schools and allow Greenwich to continue attracting the next generation of families, students, and teachers. Thank you for your time and all you do for our town.
Thank you.
Jody Stewart, followed by Candace Garthwaite.
Good evening, BET. I have stood at this podium many times to speak on the behalf of the more than 1,000 Greenwich voters and taxpayers who are devoted pickleball players, a beautiful community. As you well know, communities across the country, including all our neighboring towns, have made room in their budget to respond to this demand for new courts. But Greenwich, once known for its best-in-class amenities, has fallen way behind. Since COVID, many are working from home and have more time to play sports, especially pickleball. Stamford currently has 12 town courts, plus 4 hybrid, 41 courts with a fee, 14 more on the way, plus Towns Cove Island, which they're looking at. When Greenwich residents go to neighboring towns to play pickleball, Greenwich loses revenue in clinics, leagues, lessons, gas, and restaurant meals. Neighboring towns have a wide variety of lessons and clinics not found in Greenwich. And so Greenwich residents wanting to learn or enhance their game must go elsewhere for these services. What few clinics are available routinely sell out in one day. New arrivals in Fairfield County have their pick of excellent towns and the quality of local amenities that weigh in the balance when they decide where to live. This Thursday, tomorrow, I will be at Pickleball America in Stamford with my group of 10 girls. We would much rather be playing in beautiful Greenwich. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Candace Garthwaite, followed by Peter Alexander.
Okay, I do not look like Candace, however, she was ill, so I am speaking for her. She lives down in Old Greenwich. Connecticut towns, large and small, have listened to their enthusiastic pickleball players and have already built an abundance of dedicated pickleball courts and have budgeted for more. Meanwhile, Greenwich has 2 dedicated pickleball courts seriously needing repair. Last year, the BET eliminated $100,000 from the $375 allocation to build 4 pickleball courts behind the new Eastern Greenwich Civic Center. This project is now on hold since Parks and Rec Department cannot go and bid until all funds are appropriated. So we are here again asking for the $100K to be included in the FY25 budget. Our hope is that these 4 dedicated pickleball courts can be built as soon as possible. To expedite the construction of these courts, please modify the conditions placed on this project so this funds are available for design of the project as soon as possible. Thirdly, sufficient operating budget funding is needed for the maintenance and repair of town-wide public racket courts. A problem for tennis, pickleball, and paddle players is that the entire inventory of racket courts needs to be rebuilt or refurbished in a major way. The condition of these courts is part of a larger trend in Greenwich where we allow our infrastructure and our town educational and recreational assets to degrade. In summary, include the $100K for the 4 dedicated pickleball courts in Old Greenwich, modify conditions on this project so the funds are available for design and courts so the bid can be posted as soon as possible, increase the racket court maintenance fund in the F25 budget, and Park and Rec budgets going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Peter Alexander, followed by Lip Lai.
Hello, Peter Alexander, lifelong resident here. I was wondering how much money is in the budget for watershed planning? Thank you.
Thank you.
Lip Lai, followed by John Fisher.
Hi, I'm Lip Lai. I see you guys have a job. Thank you for your hard work. I'm representing Greenwich Drop-In Pickleball players. I live in Old Greenwich. We're many strong. If we can stand up and see who we are. We have plenty here. Thank you for coming. Right. We are also parents. I see you guys have lots of teachers and parents looking after their school interests, and we're also parents too. And pickleball is so much fun. It helps parents be better parents, and better parents will get better children. Representing huge community, as we can see, we've got little middle school players, primary school players, as well as high school, and parents, grandparents we have here. So it's a big community we're serving, and it is so much fun. But it's not all good. Recently, Greenwich Hospital and ONS did a webinar on injuries and how to prevent them. Terry here thinks he had an X-ray on the webinar showing his broken elbow. But we have so much fun playing and for our mental health too. The other problem we have, we make so much noise with our paddles. It's not good for the community, and at the same time, we make so much noise, screaming and shouting. Every ball we hit, every point we score, every net call we get, it is so much fun. And hopefully you can allocate some money for us, and hopefully we won't lose too much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And thank you, guys.
John Fisher, followed by Tom West.
That's tough to beat. Chair Tarkington, BET budget members, I'm John Fisher, the Greenwich PTA Council President. The PTA Council is the umbrella organization made up by and for the 15 independent PTAs in Greenwich. As Fred Camillo said, the recent resident satisfaction survey found that the quality of education and the state of the schools is the most important issue to the Greenwich residents. PTA Council urges the BET to approve the $69 million capital budget as approved by the Board of Education. Over 25% of that capital budget is for badly needed maintenance, upgrades, replacements, and security. We've seen the results of deferred maintenance, collapsed ceilings, burst pipes, boarded up windows. It's fiscally wiser to pay for proactive maintenance than to pay for more costly reactive repairs. We urge the BET to fund the renovation of Old Greenwich School as well as the other capital projects. As a reminder to everyone, no one doubts the need to renovate OGS. The BET declined interim funding in October, saying, quote, "It can follow the regular annual budget process." Well, here we are. Now let's turn to the operating budget. PTA Council urges the BET to exercise your authority to increase the proposed operating budget by approximately $2.2 million. When the BET didn't give the budget target to the BOE in September, October, the GPS administration carefully constructed a bottom-up budget. That careful bottom-up budget came in at a 6.1% year-on-year increase on a budget-to-budget comparison. That accurately reflected what the schools need and what the people of Greenwich want. Subsequently, the BET gave the schools a 4.3 budget target. GPS and the BOE set to work to shoehorn actual needs into a too small to fit target. About $2.2 million in cuts were identified. It cuts teaching staff and it reduces educational services. Those cuts are likely to diminish the educational experience of 8,611 great kids. A few people assert that there's waste in the schools. In any organization with 1,500 people working in 17 locations in a highly regulated environment, there's bound to be some inefficiencies. But there isn't millions of dollars of waste. And starving the district of needed funding isn't the way to magically create efficiency. The current proposed budget is a 4.2% increase year on year on a budget to actuals comparison. We urge the BET to fund the proposed operating budget and add back the $2.2 million that was cut from the actually, truly needed funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom West, followed by Chloe Wong. Tom West? No. Chloe?
evening, members of the BET. My name is Chloe Watt, and I'm a third grade student at Old Greenwich School. I'm here tonight to speak those that it's nearly past their bedtimes, but don't worry, I've had my hot chocolate, and I'm ready to tackle some grown-up issues. First off, let's talk about our school's unique aroma. And no, I'm not referring to the cafeteria's Mystery Meat Mondays. I'm talking about the sewage backups. It's hard to focus on your ABCs when your nose is constantly under assault. Studying in a sneaky classroom, that's a test no one prepared us for. Now onto our air conditionings, or should I say our ancient relic that sounds like a dinosaur with a sore throat. It's not only uncomfortable, but it feels like trying to do your math homework in a sauna while a jet engine takes off next to you. And speaking of homework, let's talk accessibility. Our school doesn't have an elevator or ramps. Imagine telling your friend with a broken leg, sorry, you can't learn today because you can't climb up the stairs. That's like saying you can't eat lunch because you can't juggle. Doesn't make sense, right? Safety is no joke either. We need more hope than a strategy in case of an emergency. In the world where we can practice lockdowns as much as fire drills, our school needs to be prepared. Well, we need to feel safe to learn, not to learn to feel safe. The time for maybe laters and we'll see is over. Our school isn't just falling behind, it's falling apart. We need to make a new school now. One where the air is fresh, halls are accessible, and safety isn't just a wish. Let's make a change, not next year, not tomorrow, but today. Because our education can't wait, and neither can our safety. I will trust you will do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Peter Quigley, that's going to be a hard act to follow, and followed by Morgan Evans.
You scheduled it that way. Good evening. Good evening. Green light. Yeah, okay. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Tarkington, Moriarty, Harry, and Mr. Weisbard. You all know me. I'm Peter Quigley. Some in this room do too. I'll be brief on my background. I've 22 years in Greenwich on North Street and now on Field Point Road. I've come back a year ago. I was for 15 years, 4 terms on the RTM, vice chair of its land use committee, point person for its flood use management, flooding and water management, stormwater management and environment concerns in the town of Greenwich to be a little more serious following that act. I'm going to try to be quick, to do 3 minutes after 15 years. The issue I'm speaking to tonight is the capital fund program and long-term bonding. I've been talking for 15 years, or at least 12 years, since a CDM study identified $250 million engineering fix of our storm water drainage system, which is basically the same as the sewer system, but separate. It's a separate system, but it is part of the sewer system. And if you go to Chapter 16, you will find that the sewers have about 3 pages of how to deal with them. Storm drains can be part of that charter. And in fact, it identifies 20-year long-term bonding, one of the only long-term bonding programs in the charter that allows you to do storm drainage, not to the 1 or 2 or 3 million being recommended over the last 10 years. I am very disappointed. And I'm disappointed, as you should be, on the fact that flooding is still a major issue. Do you think flooding is a major issue? Does anyone here not think flooding is a major issue? And creating a burden, not only to people to get the water in their basements, flood the area, but it's a public safety, it's a health issue. It is to 830G why this town is being overdeveloped. It has become a floodplain of 8 or 9 watersheds with waterways and rivers. You've got to start to deal with storm drainage issues. It's an investment, probably close to $12 to $15 million a year over 20 years. attached to your sewer programs. Why the Flood and Erosion Control Board and the ex officio members, being the Board of Select people, don't come out to support that after 15 years is amazing. I thank you. You'll be hearing more about this over the next 3 months as you deliberate. You know that. You've heard me before. Why aren't you identifying the charter? There could be real liabilities. You get someone that's interested in class action suits to the obligations of the town to build their stormwater drainage systems with the sewers. Could be some problems. Thank you very much, all. Appreciate it.
Morgan Evans, followed by Kristen Beecher.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Evans. I live in Old Greenwich. I was recently elected to represent District 6 in the RTM, but I speak tonight as a parent and a concerned citizen. Shore Road is used by hundreds of pedestrians daily, but they have to dodge landscaping trucks, construction vehicles, and speeding residents. The blind turn at Nawthorne is extremely hazardous, and that's assuming people are even paying attention. As I often ask my wife, what do drivers even look at before smartphones? Todd's Point is less than a mile from our house, but we drive there with the bikes loaded in the back because our kids cannot navigate that stretch of Shore Road on foot or on bicycle. We live on Shore Road, but we knocked out a section of our boundary wall and put a gate in so that we could access the sidewalks on Sound Beach so that we could get into town safely. Our family and our neighbors support sidewalks on shore from Sound Beach to Todd's Point. I also attended Old Greenwich School in the 1980s. I have 3 children there now. My first visit as a parent was intensely nostalgic, but I was quickly alarmed by just how little the school had been improved in the intervening 40 years. Of particular concern is the HVAC system. I know that during the pandemic, teachers had to prop windows open throughout the entire winter just to maintain baseline adequate ventilation. Old Greenwich is the beating heart of our community, and it deserves, and our children deserve, a safe and modern learning institution. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Kristen Beecher, followed by Kevin Malloy.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, BET budget members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kristen Beecher, and I'm a resident of Old Greenwich. I'm truly in awe of the dedication and time and support that you all have for this town and the people of the community. As a member of this community, I'm here today to say a few quick words about a critical sidewalk that's long overdue for our town, and also show support of the OGS renovation. The sidewalk I'm referring to is Shore Road between Sound Beach Ave and Todd's Point, which is a stretch of road I'm confident every single one in this room has driven on, and many have walked or jogged. I personally live on this stretch of road and have been running on it for many years. I also walk my children to and from the bus stop on this road every day, and I walk my 2 young daughters who are 5 and 7 years old, and I bring my 2-year-old in tow every single day, and it proves to be the scariest few minutes of my life as a mother, day after day. And I know I speak for many parents whose children get on and off the bus on the 22 public bus stops that are on that route every day. And they have to do it regardless of the fear of getting hit by a car, which is a very scary feeling. I just want you to all take a moment and think about your children or family walking on this road right now. This is a heavily traveled pedestrian road. It always will be, due to it leading to a town park that is frequented by our community because of how beautiful it is. We must protect our pedestrians. It's only a matter of time before something really horrible happens on this, and it could be avoided if there were sidewalks. There's more distracted drivers than ever. There's more delivery vehicles, there's more construction trucks all over the roads, but especially on Shore Road. I see it every day, and even when I drive this road, I'm very nervous as I veer around pedestrians and can't see over protruding hedges. I know everyone here has been aware and is aware of the need for the sidewalk on this road, and believe we can do Greenwich right by making this happen as soon as possible. The safety of our community depends on it, and I know you all have the community's best interest in mind. You would enhance pedestrian safety, provide a dedicated space for walkers, joggers, and children, reduce the risk of accidents while also fostering a more walkable and inclusive community. Everything about this is a win for this community and a win for everyone who votes to make this happen as soon as possible. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you more through this process.
Evan Malloy, followed by Lucy Van Brockel.
Hi, I'm Kevin Malloy. I'm a 20-year resident of Old Greenwich. Thanks so much to the BET for everything you do for the town. I really appreciate it. So listen, I'm here to also provide some support for the proposed sidewalk from Sound Beach Outshore Road to Todd's Point. I wanted to share a personal story that hopefully will bring a little bit of context to this situation. I'm a runner, including 8 marathons, and on July 13th of 2014, an absolutely gorgeous Sunday, I will tell you, I decided to go for a long run. I was training for the Berlin Marathon at the time. So I left our house and proceeded running against traffic, as you're supposed to, down Shore Road until I got to the hard left, which the 2 speakers ago alluded to. There's a hard left as you're coming around. There's a very high hedge on the left-hand side, and it's tight, and there's no sidewalk. So runners always cross over and then run with traffic coming from behind them. As part of the lawsuit that followed the incident I'll tell you about in a moment, I filmed runners for about an hour. They all cross over there and then run with traffic. So from there, it's easier just to go to the police report to have some details on what happened. At a point approximately 123 feet east of the intersection of North Crossway, as Vehicle 1 attempted to pass the jogging pedestrian, that's me, the right front corner of the Vehicle 1 collided with the back and left side of the pedestrian. Upon impact, the pedestrian spun in a clockwise direction, so I was hit from behind and spun up in the air this way. And as a result of the continued forward momentum, was propelled an undetermined distance in a westerly direction. The pedestrian landed on his left side and back, which also resulted in him striking his head on the roadway, as evidenced by the circular pool of blood in the roadway, the distance of which was approximately 3 feet in its center to the northern curb line, so about a 6-foot pool of blood in diameter. As Vehicle 1 continued in a westerly direction a short distance after impact, the right side mirror made contact with the pedestrian. In actuality, while I was in the air upside down, he drove through me. My shoulder ripped the side rearview mirror off the car, and then I landed on my head. There were a number of spectators there that day, witnesses. One in particular went on in the police report to say, she was jogging easterly on Shore Road and was approaching the pedestrian on the opposite side of the street. As she passed the pedestrian, she heard the impact, which drew her attention to the left. Then she observed the pedestrian spinning around in the air, hitting the vehicle mirror and landing hard on the road. She then ran to the aid of the pedestrian, who lost consciousness for 20 seconds. Listen, the bottom line here is that I was very banged up that day. I had a severe concussion. That was the worst of it. But in reality, I was actually quite fortunate. I easily could have died that day. This is an incredibly dangerous stretch of road, and we need to do something about it. This needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Van Brockel, followed by Myra Clokenbrink.
Hi, thank you, BET Budget Committee, for being here to listen to us tonight. I'm Lucy Van Brockel. I'm an RTM member in District 4. I live in Byram. I have kids in the public schools. I'm a taxpayer, a business owner, yada, yada. I didn't actually prepare any comments because, pet peeve of mine, I had no idea what was in the budget. I still don't really know. I have a slideshow to work from, so I'm going to go from that. I want to support all of the school parents, urging you to move forward at a quicker pace on the school capital project process. Looking at it now, it seems like maybe we'll get through a quarter of the 15-year plan in 15 years, which is not acceptable. I'd also like to support all of our neighbors in other areas of town on traffic and pedestrian safety, bicycle friendliness. All of that brings us to become a more vibrant, active, connected community. Everyone wants a beautiful, fun community where we all get together and work together, volunteer together, go to school together, and enjoy our beautiful town together. I do want to say that I would really like to see this new term on the BET and the RTM push for a better capital planning process with better prioritization, more involvement from the community early on, and oversight over projects especially on the town side, throughout the life of a project that's more consistent. I'm one of the rare people that reads the internal audits on a regular basis. I read the one on the capital planning process, and I'd really like to see some of the improvements that were suggested come through. And another thing, this is another personal thing, but please, 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 please fund a zoning enforcement officer. This is a health, safety, quality of life issue that is completely under-recognized and goes a long way. It's really important for especially neighborhoods like mine that are very dense, and I think for everybody in general. And cell service at the high school. That's a really big one too. Thank you.
Myra
So
Cook.
I just want to make a comment, Lucy, and for everyone here, we are only receiving the budget books this evening also, so we don't have any preview on this, so, okay, thank you.
Myra Clokenbring, followed by Katerina Mura. Myra? Katerina?
Hello, good evening, members and chair of the BET and meeting attendees. I believe Myra must have left. We spent several of us a day in Hartford today. I arrived home, went quickly to the bathroom and came straight here. I'm telling you this story because I don't have anything prepared. Still, I think supporting our public schools is so important that I'm exhausted, but I'm here just to give my voice again. After many times I was at this podium to support Old Greenwich School renovation. So I forgot to say I am from Old Greenwich, but now you guessed it. So please, we have heard Chloe give the best examples of what still needs to be fixed in this school. I think you're all on board. We hope you are. We're not going anywhere. We'll come back here over and over and over, even if I have to stay a whole night awake. So I would like to say that, and then I would like to put a plug for all the teachers and the staff of our public schools from pre-K to high school. They are amazing. They are heroes dealing with students and new circumstances different from our generation. And among all those, I would like to put big support for our pre-K program. I have a fifth grader and I have a pre-K student in public schools. While she is a general education kid, and so I had choices. I entered by the lottery and not because I needed the support of special education. I think Greenwich has a wonderful, wonderful public pre-K program. I think my daughter is privileged to enjoy her time at school both with general education kids and special education kids. These teachers are amazing. And so I will do the not very, very popular request of actually increasing your budget to this program because they will be dealing with a lot of challenges this year due to the changes in legislation. And rather than putting more kids in one classroom and increasing the ratio, I would please ask you that you consider adding more classrooms and more staff and help protect this program that's very good, and you should keep leading the way and keeping Greenwich as a good example. So my support for the school's budgets in general and these two specific requests. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Catherine Cooper, followed by Mary Tobin.
Good evening. Catherine Cooper sends her regrets. She is the OGS PTA co-president this year, and it is her daughter's birthday. So she was here for an hour, but she did have to leave to go back and be with her daughter. So good evening. My name is Mary Tobin. I live in Old Greenwich, and I serve on the RTM for District 6, and I'm the delegate to the Education Committee. I am speaking on behalf of myself this evening, though, in support of funding the full capital and operating budgets of our town's public schools, and in particular, the $43 million in construction funds for Old Greenwich and the $150,000 toward a feasibility study for Riverside. My son Dylan is a classmate of Chloe's and is now a third grader at Old Greenwich School. 2 years ago, I spoke with you all about how the bathroom in his first grade classroom flooded with raw sewage every time there was a big storm, which is still happening. Despite that, I did say then that I believe we can do better, and we did. With your support, a building committee was established who in the last year has effectively moved the renovation process forward, holding public forums, conducting due diligence, and developing the project design. And I'm especially grateful that our town has continued to come together and rally behind this effort, including our leaders on the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and most recently, the RTM. And last but not least, Old Greenwich residents continue to voice their overwhelming support for the renovation. It is now up to the BET to affirm the will of our community with its support of full funding for Old Greenwich renovation. With your help, we can get this over the finish line and finally begin construction next summer. And our work does not stop there. We need to begin the long overdue process of studying the feasibility for a much-needed renovation at Riverside School. I can think of few things more important than investing in the health, safety, and quality of learning for the children of our town. Thank you for your service to Greenwich and for your consideration on these matters.
Maggie Bound, followed by James Waters. Maggie, I have two here for you, but I assume you'll be speaking once. Two sheets.
Yes, just once, don't worry. Dear BET members, my name is Maggie Bound, and I've been a resident of Old Greenwich for 12 years. I'm also a founding member of SOS, or Sidewalks on Shore Road. I'm here to say thank you for the beautiful sidewalk you approved in 2022, which was built this last fall, for our busy portion of Shore Road from Tomac to Sound Beach. It has made our children safer, our residents more connected, and our neighborhood more vibrant. Follow us on Instagram to see many examples. But we are here to ask for more. We would like to finish the job and continue the sidewalk on the other side of shore to Todd's Point. We are asking for $250,000 to design and engineer a sidewalk for this portion. We are here to begin formally SOS to Todd's. But why? 3 reasons. Todd's Point is one of the most popular parks in all of the town of Greenwich. And guess what? It's virtually the only one without a sidewalk providing safe pedestrian access to and from. Todd's Point hosts many summer camps, Sandpipers, Camp Carefree, as well as the Todd's Point Sailing Camp. Probably your children have done these programs, which bring hundreds of children in every week. Even when camps weren't running during COVID, upwards of 20,000 residents a week visited Todd's. Number 2, Shore Road has long been highlighted as a high pedestrian area and prioritized as one of the 12 priority sidewalks with a 100% score for over 2 decades. I am sure many of you recently ran your election campaign based on public safety and infrastructure, so for you, this should be a project that you would relish to show your commitment. Finally, Department of Public Works has said that a sidewalk on shore to Todd's is the single most popular request that they receive from the residents of the town of Greenwich. Just ask Jim Michael. This should not surprise any of us because the recent 2023 Greenwich Resident Satisfaction Survey that was just published January 9th cited Greenwich beaches and parks as the most favorite feature that drew residents to the area. So in summary, this is an urgent, often requested project whose time has come. This is a worthwhile endeavor, and we finally have the chance to achieve it. So we ask that you keep this line item in the 2024-2025 budget. Thank you so much.
James Waters, followed by Karen Cross.
Good evening, Chairwoman Tarkington, Chairman Fisher, members of the BET. My name is James Waters. I am a North Mianus resident. I am the chairman of the Old Greenwich School Building Committee and chairman of the RTM Budget Overview Committee. Tonight, my dual-hatted update will get right to the point. The OGS Building Committee looks forward to speaking with you in the weeks ahead. We are almost done with design development and will have an updated project estimate by the end of February. We'll brief you in early March when the estimate is ready. There have been some key updates on the OGS renovation since we spoke in October. First, on October 30, the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights approved our project design and schedule. OCR is expecting construction funding in the upcoming year's budget and construction to start in the summer of 2025. In December, the RTM overwhelmingly approved the MI for the OGS renovation. We're pleased at the continued strong community support for the OGS ed specs. Last week, the Architectural Review Committee approved our design plans. We have a few items to complete for P&Z, but we'll be going back to them with our final site plan this spring. The Building Committee will be ready to submit its application to the state by the June 30 deadline, once the BET and RTM approve full construction funding. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye on this project, but let's work to get it done this year. The RTM Budget Overview Committee looks forward to your upcoming budget deliberations and will want to hear from BET members at our May 2 BOC meeting. Please mark your calendar. You're going to see that BOC will take a more strategic approach this year. Among the items we look forward to discussing in depth, first, ensuring town departments are appropriately staffed to execute on their mission while being fiscally responsible. I'm hearing concerns that some departments are struggling with their mission and stretched too thin. Second, finding realistic avenues to better manage ongoing operating costs like healthcare and utilities. We know these have gone up exponentially, and we'd like to hear ideas on how better to manage them going forward. Third, ensuring the numbers in the 5- and 15-year capital plans are real. There's a sense our capital plan includes numbers that are stale, unrealistic, or missing entirely, and that a refresh is in order. We'll be happy to work with you to get this done. Fourth, ensuring proper oversight is in place for major projects like the Hamel Rink project and others. I've had recent conversations with the First Selectman about this and look forward to discussing it with you. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to our conversations in the coming weeks.
Karen Cross, followed by Vivian Wu.
Good evening. My name is Karen Kraus. I'm the parent of a Cos Cob School third grader and a child who will be entering kindergarten in the fall. Members of the Board of Estimation and Taxation, I thank you for the opportunity to share my views. I know you have a difficult task before you, and I'm grateful for your service to our town. I respectfully ask that you fully fund the revised Greenwich Public Schools operating budget being submitted by Dr. Jones and the Board of Education. The high quality of Greenwich Public Schools is a key reason people choose to live in Greenwich. It's why I moved here over a decade ago, and why I still choose to live here even though my hybrid work schedule makes it possible to live much further from New York City than before. The high quality public education is also a big reason the houses in Greenwich are worth so much more than the comparable home in a neighboring town. If we let the quality of our public schools decline by cutting important programs, we could see that impact home values and ultimately the tax base that funds a whole host of town services, from police to parks to plowing our roads. The Greenwich Public Schools budget has already been cut too far. The majority of the increases are non-discretionary. Utility prices have risen. Special ed is mandated by the state. Buses and union contracts signed in prior years have built-in increases. That leaves few places to cut, and those are not places that should be cut. One area that seems particularly vulnerable is the Elementary Advanced Learning Program, ALP. It's a successful program that's needed by kids whose brains work differently. It's essential to meet the unique learning needs of those gifted students. And it's worth noting that the Connecticut statutes recognize the importance of differentiated learning and state that extraordinary learning ability requires differentiated education. Importantly, the Advanced Learning Program also benefits mainstream students. When students are pulled out for English language arts, math, and science, it reduces class size and the range of abilities in the room, enabling elementary homeroom teachers to spend more time on the kids who remain in the room. With the post-COVID learning loss and the resulting drop in test scores, this is not the time to cut essential programs. I urge you to fully fund the revised GPS budget to maintain our high-quality schools that make this town great. Thank you.
Vivian Wu, followed by Peter Schwartzstein.
Hi, I'm Vivian Wu from COSCOB. I volunteer on the Parks and Rec Board, but I'm speaking for myself. First, I want to thank you for the dedication you have to the town of Greenwich. I know what dedication it takes to do what you do. I'm here today to request the reinstatement of funding of $100K for the installation of lights for new pickleball courts in Old Greenwich. The installation of lights for the new pickleball courts will not only enable extended playing hours, but it will also contribute to the safety and security of those utilizing the facilities. By accommodating evening play, the lights will further enhance the accessibility of the sport to a wider demographic, thereby promoting an active and healthy lifestyle for our residents. Pickleball is a sport that caters to individuals of all ages. There are many things currently that may divide us in our town, in our country, but pickleball brings people together. We just have fun. We don't care what other things you think about or do. And if you haven't tried it, I wish you would. By investing in pickleball facilities, we are not only meeting the current needs of our residents, but also sowing the seeds for a more connected and vibrant community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Vivian.
Peter Schwartzstein, followed by Lillian Perone.
Good evening, BETA members, parents, teachers, and all community members. My name is Lillian Perone, proud president of the largest union in Greenwich, and also among the large locals for CEA State Teachers Union in the great state of Connecticut. I've been a K-12 teacher, program associate, district lead teacher, GA president, athletic coach, team mentor, reviewer, a general manager restaurant in New York, and a manager for a restaurant in the 80s right here in Greenwich. I may not be a Greenwich resident, but I have lived a great life in many capacities here in this great town. But I must make you aware of some things that are not so great, that are happening and will continue to happen to our most precious resources, our children, and our dedicated teaching staff. First of all, you must support and fund our GPS budget. I had things prepared, but I'm going to deal with this right now. I am tired of people making statements about 10 years ago, we had more students and this number of teachers. Okay, so let me educate everybody here. The graduation requirement changed, went from 23 to 25 credits, new state mandates, and I'm shocked and appalled that people forget that we had COVID. We had COVID here for 3 years. That affected our staff, our students, this community. Our students, our family members, people have lost grandparents, cousins, relatives. Our students lost learning time. They lost socialization skills. They came back to our schools with losing critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Our teachers went home in days and tears. The whole world knows about COVID. But I guess there's some people here in Greenwich that must have forgot about it. I'm appalled, really appalled at that. We also have the issue of grant funding. For 24 year, there was a reduction, 6 high school FTEs, 4 middle school, 1.0 K-5, 1.2 art, music, PE. For 25, 3.0 world language, 1 K-5 classroom.
30 seconds.
Wow, that's a fast time clock on your buddy. That is not. I agree or disagree with that, but I'll keep going. The budget needs to be passed. This is a perfect example of Einstein's theory of insanity. Sanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different returns. You continue to cut over and over again, you give less and expect more for outcomes. teachers are upset and feel disrespected. We were called heroes. You told us you loved us. And how do you show your love and appreciation? You keep cutting the budget. We cut staff. We increase slides. Not only do we have to teach our classes, but we have to cover other classes. We do not have enough substitutes. We pull teachers. Thank you. Sigmund Freud said it in small matters, trust your mind, and large ones, trust your heart. Let's start trusting our heart, and let's give our students what they need. Thank you for your time.
Janet McMahon. And then if Peter Schwartzstein is here, he would be the last.
Good evening.
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
Do you want to go before me?
No, you're next.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for your service to this town, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Janet McMahon, and I'm speaking to you tonight as chairwoman of the PTA Council Facilities Committee. Our committee is in full support of the Board of Education's total capital budget request of $69,090,000, and we'd like to draw your attention to the following projects which remain at the top of our school community's priorities. The students and teachers at Old Greenwich School have had to suffer from poor ventilation, sewage problems, flooding issues, a lack of a secure entryway and fire protection, and ADA noncompliance. It is well past time to begin construction in earnest. Remember that we may be legally required to start construction no later than the summer of 2025, pursuant to the settlement we reached with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. Also, every year that this project is delayed, taxpayers incur $3 million in cost escalation. The Julian Curtis School cafeteria is severely undersized and the smallest in the district. PTAC Facilities supports expanding it ideally, as well as updating the millwork and cabinets, which are extremely outdated and past its useful life. At only $3.8 million, this project would be impactful to the Julian Curtis community, which has waited patiently for adequate cafeteria space. This year, Riverside School came dangerously close to not having enough homeroom and ALP classrooms. It remains one of the most crowded schools in the district, with every square inch of the building being used and some spaces being repurposed multiple times a day. Security, ADA accessibility, and safety issues such as a lack of a fire sprinkler system also exist. A copy of Riverside's most pressing deficiencies has been emailed to the First Selectman and the BET separately, but suffice it to say that Riverside School desperately needs this $150,000 feasibility study in order to move forward with their plans to either renovate, expand, or both. The GHS Cellular Improvement Project has been deferred for several budget cycles and must not be deferred again. There is no cellular service within Greenwich High School, which presents a significant safety risk. Again, at only $631,000, are our teachers and students' safety worth deferring this project yet another year? PTAC Facilities also supports the Board of Education's line for ADA compliance at $3.8 million. This $3.8 million is for an accessible entrance at Western Middle School for $1.8 million, as well as a $2.2 million placeholder for additional ADA accessibility work. As you can see on the CIP, there are 12 steps to enter Western. Our Western students and faculty need and deserve access. In conclusion, PTAC Facilities respectfully requests fully funding the BOE capital budget. The more we delay any capital project, the more we open our town up to liability and preventable construction escalation costs. It also delays lower priority school construction projects and compounds the BOE's existing backlog of projects. Thank you.
Chad Paris, and then if Peter Schwartzstein is here, he would be the last.
Hi, my name's Chad Paris. I live on Old Church Road, and last time I spoke at the VET was also about water. So we had 3 or 4 people talk about water. So I'd like to talk about water, beautification, and tech just briefly. And we'll talk about beautification first because I think everyone can agree with that. So what do I mean by that? Well, I think most of the public projects which are budget-driven can be very unattractive. And I think that the buildings that have been put up by the state, by the federal government, by any institution, by some of the private schools that just did a notable addition. I think the buildings are unattractive. And I think anyone with budget and planning and zoning responsibility within a town has an obligation to try and make things attractive. Now, there's an entire school of thought around brutalism that you heard me talk about earlier. This is a technique used to do the opposite, is to surround people with things that are unattractive to the eye, to demoralize them and make them feel like they are prisoners. So just to end the subject of beautification, it's no one's responsibility unless we make it our own. So no one complained about the appearance of the school that cost $140 million that was put on the slide right there. It should be unacceptable to everyone, from the union representatives to the teachers to the administration to the moms who vote. It should be unacceptable to anyone that we spend any large sum of money to put unattractive things up as testaments to our time in town. Water, storm drains. Storm drains are very simple, guys. They're full of leaves. There's a tree in the duck pond at the high school. They took all the fall out of the creek to build all the fields, and now none of the water drains away from many neighborhoods properly. This is very simple. You don't need front-end loaders and dump trucks to move leaves out of town. You need several leaf vacuum trucks like every town in Westchester has that picks up leaves continuously during the fall. And they clean out the waterways and the fallen trees related to the storms. They simply have to be removed. Do you guys not see them? They're on the side of the road. I mean, on Fairfield Avenue, on Old Church Road, on every road in town, there's fallen trees, there's leaves, there's stuff everywhere. Clean it up. And that way we have less water damage to our homes. Lastly, tech. If you could spend less and get more, would you do it? Because that's the promise of tech, right? I have my entire family on Duolingo. We're studying Italian. My son can speak in complete sentences. He's 9 after 3 months on the system. For $80,000, you can buy a license for every student in the school system for a self-learning application that provides access to a global language not available in the district until high school. So I would just say a priority should be in a budget-focused environment to pursue tech as an avenue to reduce expense. Thank you.
Is Peter Schwartzstein here? No, okay, great.
So thank you very much for all of you who participated in the public hearing and for those that have left and those that are completing the forms. So, I'm sorry? I don't know. Did Don Conway want to make additional comments? Sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. He hasn't, usually appears, Pete, if he wants to make a comment. I'm sure we'll see him over the term of the budget department meetings. So again, I want to thank you for your comments. We look forward to the department budget meetings and your participation, and your attending those meetings too, whether by being in our room or watching in television. I see Don and Conway just adding here, and he says no comments. He said no comments. So we must be doing a great job. Anyway, we're looking forward to a fiscal year 2025 budget that must continue to offer the services that make Greenwich the best place to live, raise a family, start a business, or retired. And again, I thank you for your participation. Good evening.